Well, we always knew there were going to be some tough days on this run, and tonight was one of them. We were certainly below the standards we set in the last two games with the ball. A lot of players below par technically. However, I thought we gave a very determined account of ourselves and kept ourselves in a game that ultimately looked like it might have run away from us. I would have to question the go-ahead goal, having just seen it. I honestly, when VAR asked the referee to go back over and have a look, I was, having seen it again, I was very, very hopeful that he might have realised that he may have made a mistake. And it certainly looks that way when I see it again. And in a very, very tight encounter, that really was the defining moment. The second goal was all about, being stretched out and looking to try and get back in the game quickly, going into the final moment. So not a good night for us. That has to be said. But certainly some things to think about as we undertake another tough one next week.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Coach. We'll start with Drake Hills from the Tennessee and then go to Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Drake.
Gary, you said even from yesterday in your pre-match that, this is a team, they're young, they're going to get after it, they're going to want to press. Obviously, they're at home, they have the crowd, but we've seen Nashville being able to beat. Well, obviously, they had this same challenge against Minnesota in a way. What about this Dallas group made Nashville so hard to get through that press and to get through that pressure?
Yeah, there's many different things, Drake, that have to happen in any game to find your way through to points. Tonight, we were unable to navigate the early exchanges with any real quality or consistency. The ball was coughed up and offered up to Dallas far too cheaply. And in the brief spells of possession that we did have, the final choice and the final quality, craft in and around the edge of the box was nowhere near the sort of level that we've seen from our group. And, as much as I'm loath to say it, there are times that players, cannot find their way in a game. And there were too many of our guys that could not find their way. The pitches were too cloudy for them. A very youthful and energetic and high-octane Dallas group found it far too easy to win the ball back. And when we bypassed that press, there was not enough quality in our front line to secure the ball and to ask them a new question. So whatever way we turned, it was a difficult night. But I did feel going into the 80th minute like we'd weathered the storm. It was a pretty long storm, but we'd weathered it. They were running out of ideas. And, the ball being given away on the edge of their box when it should have been secured. Aki tries to flick it, should have secured it. Lots and lots to do before they get themselves in a positive position. But, the penalty, absolutely soft. And, when we don't get given one last week, I've got to be looking around and feeling pretty unlucky at this point.
Thank you, Coach. Next, go to Tim Sullivan, then Ben Wright. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, Gary, obviously very shortly after the game here, do you have any sort of update on Dax's status? And was there a temptation to take him off at halftime since he was already showing discomfort before the half?
Yep. We'll find out more in the next 48 hours, but they clashed knees. He said that, he felt as though he could get moving again. And yes, there was a temptation. I did think that there were a couple of things that we could look at half time that would include him quite a lot in our build out. So I wanted to give it a go. In hindsight, it was a bad choice.
Next, go to Ben Wright, then Drake Hills. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Gary, you talked a little bit about just the front line not really being able to get involved. It felt like CJ, at least when he got on the ball, he was able to hold it up and find a little bit of space. But just what do you make of his performance, and how do you feel like in other games that might come up like this, that Hani Mokhtar could get brought into the game a little bit more and kind of play off of him more like we've seen in the past?
Yeah, listen, it was a really quick game, really quick. But listen, we can't complain. We want to come here in the summer and it'll be 105 degrees here. So the conditions were spot on for players to go out and attack the game. The front pair, as I looked at them, Annie and CJ, who have been very, very good for us, even in these opening two games. Sorry, the 2 games before tonight, just looked disconnected. There were some strange choices. We certainly didn't support them well enough. We didn't show any real fluidity in our play, and nowhere near enough to really challenge not only their back line but their mentality. We didn't produce enough creatively to be able to say to them, okay, look, if you keep doing that, at some point we're gonna find ourselves a moment. We didn't switch play well enough. There were too many times we tried to force it through the central areas of the field, and they were able to regain. When we did find better areas, invariably there was a reason why the attack didn't progress. And all it did was give them the confidence to keep coming and getting on the front foot. And in the end, find what I believe was a situation that should have been averted with a penalty. But in the end, they'll look at it and say, well, it took us in front. The papers tomorrow will tell us that they beat us 2-0 and that was the first goal. So that's all that matters. From our point of view, there were just too many moments that, we were unable to stay in control of the ball.
Thank you, Coach. Next, we'll go to Drake Hills and wrap up today's session with Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Drake.
Gary, you've been pretty pleased and confident when, especially I will ask you about the right back position. We talked about that at the beginning of the season with Eric having a pretty strong preseason. How do you think that the status and the way that Eric has been playing? Alex came in a little bit later. Do you think that that's a spot that wasn't to par tonight? And perhaps could you talk about Randall? Obviously, we've talked a lot about Hani and CJ, but what are your thoughts on Randall as being a part of that attacking group?
Yeah, look, the right-hand side of the field, whether it was Eric and Sean out in those areas, Alex obviously came into the second period. That wasn't just the only area that looked a bit scruffy and disconnected. There were other areas and periods of the game that, certainly, we could have and should have improved upon. We didn't get Randall in the game enough. We were unable to release our forwards into better areas. We didn't build pressure well enough. There were too many facets of our game tonight that were below par. It's as simple as that. And the one thing that kept us in the game was a big heart and a lot of determination. And in the end, it wasn't good enough. And that was always the fear sitting on the bench, that we were going to offer too much ball to them and they would find a moment. And they did in the end. It's one game out of 3. It doesn't feel nice. No one likes getting beat. We've got to pull ourselves together, and knowing that we've still got an awful lot of mileage to do and many, many away games to go. We've got to keep looking at each individual game. The first 2, I felt as though there were some strong building blocks to move on from. Tonight, we've taken a step back for sure. But, I've seen this group after defeats and, they will have the bit between their teeth come next weekend.
We'll wrap up today's session with Coach Gary Smith with Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I just want to actually follow up on that last bit that you said there, Gary, in terms of the mentality you guys will take forward from this. What do you take from a loss, I guess, that you might not be able to get from a win? And does it change kind of how you approach the final 5 games of this upcoming road stretch?
Well, look, I think the first 2 games had put us into a very good position, mindset, and feel about the way things are going away from home. Tonight's a bit of a reality check. This young, energetic Dallas side tonight have got the better of us. I feel as though we've certainly not given the best account of ourselves. And there can be many, many different reasons for that. You know, when you're jumping on and off of a plane and you're having to play in very, very different environments, there are going to be some nights where it doesn't go your way. And on those nights, like tonight, and on many, many other nights, we've been able to grab points out of those and move forward. Unfortunately, tonight, we didn't do enough. And, the guys have seen that, not very often, but when they have seen defeat, the reaction to that has been a very, very good one. And we've always come back on the front foot and looked strong. But it won't be easy because, we go to another difficult environment. And what we know is we've still got 5 games away from home, but we've got to try and literally compartmentalize each game and take what good we can out of it, try and analyze what wasn't right, and move towards next week's game in a better frame of mind.
Yeah, Sean, first, I heard that in Brandon Severino, one of their midfielders, he said during the broadcast that a part of their game plan was to find the space in behind you and Godoy, and trying to, or at least make you guys go wide so they can find the space in the middle to attack those middle channels. Is that what you saw that Dallas was trying to do? And just walk me through what it was like trying to go up against that midfield 3 tonight.
Yeah, I thought, to start the game, they unbalanced us, like you mentioned, and, we had to adjust. I think we made the necessary adjustments as the half wore on. We got to halftime. We altered our shape a little bit, and I think that helped. But in the early going, they were definitely overloading different sides, stretching out our diamond. But I do think the adjustments help. And then, in the second half, it's disappointing to concede so late. I think we were solid for the most part. I think we could have been a little sharper on the ball, a little more possession in their end of the field, a little more threatening. But, all in all, I think that we had done enough to earn a road point. And so it's disappointing. It's a big learning experience for our group. We know that this stretch isn't going to be easy, but, we take the good and the bad and we look at it this week and move on.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Sean. We'll go to Ben Wright and Drake Hills. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Sean, Gary talked just a little bit about just the difficulties kind of dealing with their pace and their movement, and maybe some of their energy. Do you feel like that was a struggle? And if so, what kind of do you put that down to?
Yeah, I think we were well prepared coming into the match in terms of knowing what they were all about. We knew that they were an energetic team, a young team, and a team that was looking for their first win. So we knew that, and it's about matching that intensity. I think, again, we could have had a better start to the game. That hasn't been an issue for us in the first 2 games. But again, we weathered the storm. And, again, I think it just comes down to us being a little sharper in possession, trying to control the tempo a little bit more, being on the front foot a little bit more. I think that could have helped us. But that's on us on the field. And that's something that we'll take from this game and move on.
Thank you, Sean. We'll go to Drake Hills and wrap up with Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Drake.
Sean, I'm curious to know what you thought about the penalty. I know I don't think you were obviously right there, just right in the action, but obviously you were close enough to see. What did you think about it?
Yeah, it was hard for me to see in the run of play. I thought that the ref looked at it for a long time. I haven't seen it yet, so it's hard for me to comment on that. But again, it's just more disappointing to concede late in the game. That's something as a group we got to improve on. And, you know, it's not going to be easy during this stretch, but I honestly didn't see it, so it's hard for me to comment.
We'll wrap up today's session with Sean Davis, Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Tim.
Sean, when you see Dax, a guy who not only is a stalwart in your midfield, but a guy that you've known for pretty much longer than anybody on this team, go down like that, what is your mindset? Do you kind of feel like you have to take on more responsibility in the midfield at that point, or kind of what do you do both in the course of the game and in terms of how you approach it from a mental and leadership perspective?
Yeah, ever since I met Dax early on in my career, you know, he's such a big presence in the midfield, a great leader. And so you never want to see him go down. You know, when he does go down, then it's just time for all of us to step up and, you know, take on more responsibility. So we hope he's okay. Obviously, it's early. We don't know too much about what's going on, but he's a huge part of this team, both on and off the field. I've already felt that the first month or two with the group. And so hoping he's okay.